Welcome everyone, Akasha here, Nana Akasha, and I'm so honored to be here on the Infinite Show. We're going into a new level of reality, a new level of our evolution, and a new level of discovering our infinite self. So in this new series, who am I becoming? And all the questions that have come in between that, I'm super excited to have my guest, Raquel. Raquel has been, I don't even know how long we've known each other, but I absolutely love everything she talks about, her personal path and what she teaches and what she knows, what she's discovered and what she's embodied, because it is all about that idea of finding your own inner authority, discovering your own design, knowing that you're unique, understanding that you're not who everyone else is, that you cannot find your path by being what everybody else thinks you should be, and knowing that that individuality is what's going to lead you to happiness, health, and success. So let me share just a little bit as we get deeper into this topic. So Raquel is a revolutionary human design teacher, and she has a master's in spiritual psychology. Now, the real thing is, when I met Raquel, she is an incredible businesswoman. She's a super successful person. She's had spiritual aspects in her business for a long time. And she's, in my opinion, been moving on her path, a spiritual path within the 3D world, doing all these things, trying all these ways that we're taught. Do this to be successful, do that, work harder, do all these things. And that's one of the reasons that her wisdom is so profound, because it's not just, I took a class and now I'm regurgitating it. This is a woman who has deeply experienced and lived so many highs and lows, so many experiences of who am I and who am I here to be? Who am I designed to be? How do I find that? So I love that she says, I'm a spiritual shock igniter. That's fantastic. She's helped countless people transform their lives by understanding their personalized success code in her creative coaching certification for human design specialists school. At one time, she was depressed, she was lost, she was hopeless, like so many people. She was trying to climb that corporate ladder, longing for a life of meaning and purpose. And if you're there, you're not alone. We've all been waking up for a while, but right now it's very intense. So you're so going to relate to her stories and to what she's experiencing and what she's helping people to do. After years of study, anybody else? Tons and tons and tons of reading and absorbing and consuming and searching and seeking, ingesting every spiritual self-help motivational novel, she realized she might just be holding the golden ticket of the missing puzzle pieces for those who are longing to self-actualize. So then she dedicated herself to serving others in their struggling careers and lives that don't represent their truth. And this is what we're talking about here. Who am I? Why am I living this life? Why am I depressed? Why am I unhappy? Why am I unfulfilled? Why am? Because it's time to be who you really are. So she brings this intel in a clear message, easy to understand, and immediately practical. Yay, my favorite thing, practical spirituality, to her community and clients of over 60,000 mutants. I absolutely love that. And her intention is to usher in the era of the individual, support the collective during the time of this significant change. So thank you so much for being here.
We made it.
We made it. Fantastic. So, you've had this up and down life like everybody. You realized early on, though, that this wasn't working, or, you went through the emotion like everybody did, with loss or betrayal or failure or confusion. And yet there was an inner driving force, really, that kept you moving, looking for something different. I know for me, everything had to fall apart. And then I went, okay, what's weird and different? So tell us a little bit about how you came to realize that you needed to embrace your mutant self, or your unique self, or your unicorn self.
Yeah, so my story really is a series of ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster ride. It hasn't been like here's my loss and then here's my I made it story. I hear a lot of people share that, and I love that. It wasn't like that for me. It was really expansion and then crash and expansion and crash. And it went like that for quite a bit of time. And now it's much more subtle. It's much more subtle because I think you learn how to ride those waves and you learn how to balance out things. And so for me, my spiritual path started probably in my 20s. Even before I got into corporate America, I was had a spiritual teacher having spiritual awakenings, but I really didn't know how to ground my spiritual. So what I did instead is I stuffed it down and was like, "Oh, I better work because I got to pay the bills and make sure I can, afford the mortgage and all of that." And so that left a big schism, and it left this spiritual, almost like a disconnect, where I was able to have these huge spiritual awakening and even ungrounded, very ungrounded. And so that process brought me to a business investment choice that was not a good one. Not a good one. And it brought me crumbling, crashing, like down to and this was after, getting a master's in spiritual psychology, studying and doing all of it and crashing down. If anyone's ever had that on the bathroom floor moment where everything you're about to lose your house, you're about to have nothing, and you, everything was falling apart. And it was really at that moment when I was brought to human design, which for me at that moment was the missing piece to my puzzle. I believe that there's not one missing piece, okay? There's always moments of life where you might need some other information or some other awakening, or you have another moment of spiritual transformation. I think it's very different for every person. That was just the piece of the puzzle that I needed at that moment. And I see a lot of people using the human design piece as an additional tool to all and many different spiritual teachings. So I like to combine that piece of knowledge with the human design, with spiritual awakening. Most of my clients are spiritual teachers, mystics, and they're using and wanting something to help them kind of guide through the 3D as we're moving to the 5D and kind of that transition. So that was the piece that really helped me kind of merge everything I had been studying and learning, and then build sort of a business that represent more satisfyingly represented my truth.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important because I just had a retreat, and then there's a lady that's fairly new to her awakening and very aware she's awakening. But when it started happening, she didn't even know what it was. So
Yeah.
thankfully we have the internet now, because that didn't exist when in the dark ages when I was going through this.
Yeah.
And yet you go through ups and downs. And she was asking me like, well, what's your path? And it's never been one thing.
Yep.
It was a complete deconstruction of everything I was taught. And then what the F, and where do I go from here? Which then opened me to look in places I had never looked. But then each thing, and I like that, I call it a merge moment. Like you said, that human design was the piece for you, because what I've learned from you about human design has been very helpful. And but I don't know it the way you do. It's very full, rich system. And I love everything you say about it, because it's so much about being that individual, which is something that's inside of me and most people, and it's been seeking away for all my life. But that merge moment where you've been looking, you've been seeking, things are falling apart, things are getting better, and you think this is it, and then it's not, and this is it. And I think that's part of the path, is there's not the one thing, the one moment, because nothing stays the same. Once you reach that point of truth, a different truth unfolds. Right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to add, while I was at corporate was when you and I met. And you were another very important inspirational voice for me. And during that time, I remember you were telling me your corporate career is stealing your soul. It was something like that. You were like, you got to get out of there. And I was like, what? Like, I was not ready for that. I wanted a business to be prepared and ready for me to take the leap so that I could leave with knowing how much I was going to make in my business and knowing it was going to fit. And like, you're like, and after working with you, I remember having this dream where my corporate, I was getting a corporate paycheck and it was like a certain amount of money, and then I had to pay them double that back. And it was like this symbolism of like, yeah, they might be giving you a paycheck, but it's taking double what you have to, work for that. And, we all want some type of like, this is how it's going to be. And this is the structure. And just as like, as you were saying, the woman on the retreat, it's like we want to have some kind of structure. And for me, when I left corporate, and I was already, in my 40s when I left. So it was a scary moment of, and I was at that time single, having no backup, no family backup, and how am I going to pay the mortgage? Like that kind of block to living my spiritual path, which really, when you take on a career, it does become your spiritual path, because I had to exit that without any safety net and leap. But when you were telling me that, I wasn't quite ready yet. I was like, oh no, gotta have the plan. And the universe is like, oh no, you don't.
And then they take it away. Oh, I know, because my family's all about work hard, work long hours, be a good person, pay your bills. That's all you needed to do. And I worked my friggin' ass off, built my business. The economy crashed. Nobody paid me. And I was standing there without a business, not understanding. I did everything I was told. I did it. I did it my best, well, what the hell happened? And, now you look back and go, wow, thank God that some aspect of my spirit or soul was going, that's enough of that. Time to take a right turn, and if you're not going to do it, we'll just, help you do that. So, yeah. And sometimes you get a seed. It was funny too. I was in fashion design, and I started my business after working for a few people. And a friend of mine, I met a man who'd been in the industry his whole life. He was this wonderful elder gentleman, and he would take me to breakfast every day and tell me the wisdoms of the business, And one day he gave me this book, and it was Visualization by Shakti Gawain, which is an ancient book, and it had a big mandala on the cover, and I didn't understand any of that. I knew nothing of it. I had no spiritual anything, and I just threw it on my desk at home and went, weirdo. Not him, but the book, just weirdo. And it got buried, and then he died, and then I found it, and then it opened a door. So he seeded it before I was ready, but it was there when I was ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that has happened to me many times, where it's like, no, what is that? And I mean, it was even that way with the human design at first. I was like, I'm not a projector because I'm a manifester. I'm a major manifester.
I thought the same thing when you told me I was a projector. I'm like, are you kidding? It can happen, man. And I'm reliable, and I work hard, and I can do it. And oh my gosh.
Yeah. And, I did manifest a lot of stuff. I mean, I manifested big things, but I was always just a little burned out. I was always pushing, and I was always, never really truly recognized, which is a huge theme for projector. And, I started this huge company when I was in my 20s before corporate, and I was never fully recognized, even though I was the founder and the owner of this huge thing. It got really successful out the gate, and I had to leave it. And again, that was another moment of just complete crash down, because if I had known that I was a projector, when looking back on that, I wouldn't have been pushing and shoving and trying to make something happen, and then reaching success to the point where, it didn't have what it needed to sustain itself. So then I had years and years of pushing and trying to make that thing happen. And it all came crumbling down. So I love integrating human design to the young people, because when I have projectors that are in their 20s, which I have a lot of clients that are young projectors, like trying to figure out, do I go to college? What do I do? How do I live my life? And I just wish that I had this one little piece while I was sorting through all of that, because I did have this sense that I could manifest whatever I wanted. And I was really following along with a lot of the spiritual teachings that I had at that time, which was follow your bliss and visualize and, then go after what you want. And I was really doing that work. And I crashed so hard at that time. That was before I went into this normal corporate career. I had crashed so hard that I was like, I'm ready to bury the spiritual path, because I had so much pain and burnout, which I think, had I known I was a projector, a lot of that could have been eased and a lot of that would have not happened.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
just
great.
for people who don't know anything about human design, there's different, it's not a personality test, but it's a way of understanding yourself, your design. And then within that, certain things that work for you and certain things that don't work for you. And so, yeah, because I had the same thing. I would work really, really hard, make lots of money, do all this stuff, and then just crash and everything would fall apart. Maybe 3 years, maybe 10 years. I don't know, but it was that. And that's okay for experience too. But if you actually understand, and I didn't know human design when I finally realized, you know what? It was during my divorce and my bankruptcy and everything falling apart and feeling like I had no control over anything. I'd go, and I'd panic. I got to go do something. I got to go make money. I got to go figure something out. And I would force myself to just sit. I'd say, no, you have to sit and you have to chant, and you have to meditate. You have to do something for an hour, And so having that, then you could say, is this the best thing for me to do right now? Not, is that what everybody else is telling me to do right now?
Exactly.
Or what I did before.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there's so much conditioning, and so many people don't realize that they're trained and taught and conditioned to become a certain thing, act a certain way. And we're not just conditioned from our parents and from our schooling and from the news. We're conditioned from the stars, from the collective, from the grid. So you're moving against a force when you step out to be yourself. And it does take all of that awakening. And sometimes it takes that crash, and it takes the ability to go within and kind of move through all of those forces so you can, awaken and find what's unique for you. And so there's a lot of different tools and a lot of different ways of kind of turning that on, but it's so worth it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you had that merge moment, like you got the little piece, and of course it took you a long time to really understand the depth of human design that you understand now.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter, because that was the key at the time that opened something for you. How did that change of what you thought about who you were?
Yeah, it was really huge, because like I said, I was in corporate. I was trying to have a specific plan. So I had invested in this other business to kind of take me out of the corporate. And it was that investment that just crashed everything to the ground. And that I was working, it was a brick and mortar vegan juice bar, which I thought it could be passive income to help me get out of corporate. And it was like 40 hours a day. I mean, it was like just ridiculous. Like, it was ridiculous. I had a commute on the 405 in LA, and it was just like this really intense process. I was working so many hours, and I found out I was a projector. And with human design, it's a living experiment. What it is, it merges the Kabbalah, the ancient mystery schools, the I Ching, the chakra system with modern day sciences, the neutrino sciences, quantum physics. So it's like a merging of all of these things. And it got into my psyche that, I was a projector. So I fought it. And then I started listening, it was then I met Davidian, who's my now fiance. We haven't even gotten married yet, but we are going to this year. He was seeding me with this whole human design thing, and he was like trying to share with me a little bit about what it meant to be a projector. And one of the things is that it's an experiment. And the experiment for projector is work smarter, not harder, work less. And your purpose is to have as much income, but working less. It's part of the design of that. And the experiment is to try that on and see what happens. It's not a belief system. You can't believe it. You have to try it as an experiment. And so when that store was falling apart, all of my accountant, my spiritual teacher, my business teacher, like everybody said, get into that store and find out what's going on, because I had people stealing from me, and it was like a total nightmare. It was literally like the worst nightmare you could imagine. And everybody said, get in that store from the minute the door opens, 6 a.m., and don't leave that store until 9 p.m., and get in there and find out what's going on and blah, blah, blah. And my soul and that human design piece said, no, I'm going to do the exact opposite. And I just put the store in the hands of the manager, and I stayed home, and I said, let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to do this full experiment. And I just stopped going in. And I mean, it was through the grace of the divine source that I was able to sell the store and get some money back. So I did lose a lot of money just because I had invested so much in, but I did sell and got the money, some of it back. But because my life was on such a crash and burn, it used everything to like kind of survive, at that time. But I just did the exact opposite. And it was at that moment, everything changed for me when I was able to sleep in and get some sleep. And I just stopped taking on everybody telling me what to do to survive that. My accountant's like, you're going to lose your home. You're going to lose everything. Like, this is a black hole. You're going down. Like, that's how she was like. And my soul was like, no, you're not. You're awakening to the truth of who you are. This is your time to really birth and awaken. And so I just stayed home and started studying, because part of my design is an investigator. So I need to investigate and investigate deep. And I was so inspired to learn. Oh, Bijou, sorry about that. My dog is having a little barking session. So I just started to study and learn and explore. And I decided I was going to take the experiment on full time. And they say it's a 7-year experiment. And I was like, I'm doing it, because it's the only thing that makes any sense to me. And everything started to fall into place. Everything, even, it's so funny, as my accountant, who's also one of my dear friends, she was like, you did the exact opposite of what I told you to do at that moment. She goes, I look at you and I look at what happened and how you managed to create this incredible business out of that. She goes, I'm blown away that you were able to do that. You didn't listen to a single thing I said. And I was like, I couldn't, I'm sorry. Like, it was like my soul was bigger than that, she was trying to do what she knew to help me survive that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I love it. I love it. So that is the greatest thing. So as people are waking up right now, we're evolving, we're waking up, whatever words you want to, falling apart, big hot mess, whatever you want to call what you're seeing around you. It's becoming more and more obvious that you can't stay tuned in. We used to be like, what? We didn't even know what was happening, 5 miles away, much less everywhere at once on the planet. And so there's more possibility for tuning into everybody else's reality than ever before at, just like this, and yet this is the calling to disconnect from that. So how do you find the path of disconnecting? Because people are so conditioned to have to please other people. I was so strongly individual and at the same time so strongly motivated to please everyone.
Yes.
To be everything for everyone. And that was the exhausting part, because if I did something like you, I like to learn and research and then do it and then experience it and then taste it and then, just go in this whole thing. Yet the underlying energy wasn't just for me, it was for that outward thing. And now we're in more pressure and more input than ever before. And we're being called to find our own inner peaceful state.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's it. I think that what's happening is there's a lot of confusion and a lot of pressure to overthink. And then, of course, there's the pressure from the past conditioning. And so, with this kind of experiment of spiritual awakening and the way, it's worked as the GPS through this human design piece is to unravel all the places where you are not, where you are the not self, is what we call it in human design. It's this theme of not self. And you unravel it through what we call this process of deconditioning. And deconditioning is going through each one of the chakra systems and finding out where you are absorbing and amplifying the information of the outside world, which is in human design, the chakra system is a little bit different. It's either open or defined. And so so the chakra system teaches you different things. It's either you're going to output energy or you're going to input energy. And so it kind of helps you to unravel every place where you have been inputting the wrong piece of information. So, for example, as a projector, what we take on is because we have an open, every single projector has an open sacral, and that's the workforce energy, the life force, workforce energy. So, we all took on this conditioning to work harder, work longer, and force more energy. And then a projector amplifies it. So they are the fastest, hardest workers in the room. They're the ones who take it on, they amplify it, and then they distort it. So it's like they are the ones who will get things done, work harder than anybody else, but then they burn out twice as hard. So then the first thing a projector has to do is unravel that conditioning around that. So for me, what I had to do is after I let go of that business, I literally unplugged. And I took a human design teacher at that time, and he was like, you got to unplug from the generator world, because we live in a generator world. Is 70% are generators who are designed to work at long hours. They can work and replenish their energy. And so we actually, I mean, granted, most of them are working in things that aren't satisfying. So they have to learn how to unplug from that and only do work that's satisfying for them. So they're like this huge commodity of source that needs to do things that is satisfying. So, but a projector had to literally unravel. So I had to stop working and trust that I was going to have enough money, and trust that before my business came to be, I had to have nothing, and that I was going to be okay. And all that was going to be needed would be provided for. And I had to completely unplug. Now, my mind was going friggin' ape shit nuts on me on that. And it was like, no, you are not doing that. Like, you are not. But it worked. And I had enough energy, and I had enough flow, and I had enough all the things that the universe could possibly bring forward for me to make that happen, so that I could have a structure of business that was easy. I don't work a lot of hours, but I work concentrated hours. So I've already rested and I'm focused. And so it just completely changed, but it took some time to kind of unravel. So I think what people are in right now is a process of unraveling, being able to witness, like you were sharing before we started recording, about how you were able to step into that witness place with your family. That's a huge piece to the human design puzzle too, is just stepping into the witness where you're not plugged in. You're able to step back and witness it. And that is such a huge superpower, because it's so hard to do, because we're so hooked in to all of the dramas and all of the weavings and all of the family grid and the generational themes and all of that. And if you can pop out and witness, so that's another like little technique that isn't involved in a lot of spiritual teachings, is to like step outside, and instead of react, it's witness. Human design teaches lots of patience, which is completely opposite of every motivational, inspirational, high-end coaching out there. It's like, no, you
Yes.
don't need to be patient. It's like patience is such a beautiful thing, because really, we really have everything we need, and we really are provided for. And
Yeah.
the patience is so beautiful, because, we really don't want to rush through life. We really want to savor it and slow down. But unfortunately, we're pushed to move friggin' fast. So this process of witnessing is able to put you into a higher frequency outside the bubble and to be able to slow it down a little bit. And then you get to witness how all of that conditioning has come together, all of your patterning, all of those sources are pushing you to be something that you are not. You know, it's a
Yeah.
process, a
Yeah.
beautiful, fun, juicy, delicious process. When you take the journey and the experiment, in human design, they say it takes a full 7 years to decondition. And I was like, again, I was like, that's BS. I don't believe that. I've worked on myself since I was 20. I've had this, I've done that, I've traveled all over the world, I've done da 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 da. You know what I mean? But it like really doesn't matter because really the truth is we're always in a process of discovering the next thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's not that. And that was one of those epiphany moments in 30 some years of my spiritual path consciously, was the time when I realized I was taking all my old ways of doing things and applying it to my spiritual growth. Make it happen, have an agenda, reach a goal, and all of that, applying that to this. Once you get to a certain level of awareness, you realize it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's like saying, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what you said, right? It doesn't have any logic to it, but that's what we think. And I have, students that are waking up and then they have pressure at home.
Yeah.
Right? Why aren't you making money? You're spending money, but you're not making it. You're spending too much time on yourself, or on your, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And then wanting answers, wanting that answer, reaching that goal.
Yeah.
And I went through all of that myself over and over and over and over. And the reality is, like you said, the present moment is this rich, deep experience that has everything. And when you change who you're being, you start to say, oh, this is way more fun than being in everybody else's story. Right? There's so much here, yet that individuality is difficult for people. So when you went through the fears, because the money always comes, right? It's always about the money, because money is control, power, safety, security, and all that shit. We tell that that's money, but it's not, you
Yeah.
know. And so, you were finding your way, you were willing to give up and walk this path. And that you said, even though your mind was going ape shit. So how do people unravel that? Because I always get that question, I'm living with other people that don't like what I'm doing or want me to make money on an agenda.
Mhm. Yeah, and that is such a big question. And I think that each person, again, as we're talking about the individuality, there's no one set path. And I think that was the other thing I kept looking for is just tell me what to do. How do I get the business going? Like you said, it's like bringing all that, workforce energy into the spiritual path. Just tell me what to do. And I think that really what it is how do I be? Once we're in the being, then all of a sudden you're in the zone. And so, what human design teaches is that each person has a unique way of operating and a unique strategy. But the zone is really like so, even intuitively, you can start processing when you're in the zone, meaning that you step outside of the mind, you allow frequency to come through, and then you only move forward in the flow as opposed to in the pressure, the angst that you got to do it, you got to make it happen. And I think with all four of the aura types, each one of them being very different, they all learn through the witness and the flow as opposed to the mind. So the mind is never, ever an authority figure in human design, which is part of this evolutionary process. So they say, and this is other spiritual teachings as well, but part of what they say in human design is that the mind brought us to where we are now. So it was the mind that took us here, and it was a great instrument, and it showed that we are above the animals and the beasts and the this and that. We can control, we can make roads, we can make banks, we can do all this stuff. Now the mind is an insanity instrument that's causing chaos, fear, dysfunction, mental anxiety. Everybody's on some type of anxiety, depression, drug, and it's all because of the mind. And so what human design is saying is there's a greater intelligence, the vehicle intelligence, which is, something that we, even our greatest scientists, don't really understand how we make babies, or how do we heal ourselves. I mean, science is kind of slowly catching up with that. Like, how do we heal ourselves? Well, we're one, we're whole, we're perfect. And human design is saying in that vehicle consciousness, because human design separates spirituality and physical. So it's saying that there's a spiritual plane, but there's also this physical plane. And so in the physical plane, you don't want to deny the body. You don't want to deny the vehicle because it's here. I mean, there's just no denying that, like, we wake up, we have to feed the body, we have to breathe, we have a heart that's beating, but there's also an intelligence there that can guide and direct the life bigger and better than the mind ever could. And so when we are in this process of evolution and evolving and awakening, what we're doing is stepping outside of the control of the mind and how the mind is pushing and trying to make things happen based on, the agenda of the mind and the whatever. And within our vehicle is this depth of intelligence that we have to learn how to experience. And that was, the question you were asking before we started. Also, you're emotional and I'm splenic. And so through this human design, it's saying that there's a different way that the bodies and the vehicles process, which for me was really, really important, because so many people would tell me, like, follow your heart or follow your intuition. And these things are great advice. But for me as a splenic inner authority, following my inner authority was very specific to my lymphatic system. So my lymphatic system is very different the way it operates than other types. Emotional, it's following the depth of the feeling, the emotions. And so what human design helps us do is helps us to tap in to an intelligence that's beyond the mind. And it helps to kind of it's like plugging a GPS system in. Sure, there's other maps, there's other ways to get where you're going. But if you learn your own physical intelligence, your vehicle intelligence, it helps. It helps to discover the individuality. And individuality is really important because we are one, but we're in a unique individual vehicle. And that individual vehicle has a specific purpose. And that specific purpose is you want to play out your purpose. It's very important to play out your unique purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what everybody feels at some level in whether they're completely, conditioned to and not even able to think outside of their box, but they feel that inner just angst. Is this really all life is, all the way to, what's next, or what's the next crash and what's the next reveal. But so when you say vehicle, to me, I think you're talking about what I call your light body, which is all the layers of your being. Or are you talking about just the physical body, or explain the vehicle a little bit more?
I think, yeah, it's the physical body. Yeah, the literal physical intelligence that's within this 3D world. So it's like it's like the car. Okay, so it's like so human design is saying there's the higher wisdom, intelligence, then there's the mind. The mind is meant to be a passenger, not a driver. And then you have the driver, which is the vehicle, which is the driver is your inner authority. And so it's kind of helping you to navigate, like, the different layers in the third dimensional world of life. This is how it might work in a way for your car. your vehicle. So it's literal physical vehicle.
But you said then it's that inner authority. So since the physical body is coded and energized, right, with the other layers, so this is the intelligence that's within our spiritual or soul design or blueprint.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it is.
expressed
It's the
within.
intelligence within that, how it merges with your physical body.
Right.
So the intelligence, so like for example, there's an intelligence in how the blood is pumping in the body that the mind can't access. So
Mhm.
there's an intelligence in once the baby is impregnated that's going to split the cells. It's going to split and create all this stuff. And like your mind's not saying, okay, it's time to now split the cells. And then you got to beat the heart. And then you're going to wait 9 months. And then all of a sudden you're going to dilate and you're going to have this baby. Like the mind isn't operating that. And so
Right.
human design is saying that there's actually something within you that operates your life, not just your beating of the heart, but your actual living, functioning life, that the mind can't access.
Yeah. And that's dropping in and trusting your design.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you start to go, who am I? And we used to ask this as I had a Zen teacher a gazillion years ago who would make you ask it, every day for 6 months or a year. Who am I? What am I? And to break free from the conditioning of, oh, I'm an accountant, or I'm a, girl, or I'm a daughter, or I'm a mother, or whatever that is, like to get past that. And then you find these other levels of intelligence, right? These other levels of wisdom that have been here, that are encoded in so many ways that we can access as we access that inner intelligence in our vehicle. It's the part that can communicate, right, to the other realms or the other levels of support or the other parts of intelligence in our body elemental or other things. And so when you say, who am I becoming? Then you unravel, right? You witness. I teach the witnessing to my students, my certification students. Don't try to figure it out. Don't analyze it. Just watch and wait to see, right? And then as you go through that separation, we were talking about being in fear of other people, what they want you to do, or what you have been. As you release that, what is a sign of, oh, that's who I am? Or what's a sense or a feeling or a guide that people could not like go towards, but open to, that says, oh, that's who I am, or, oh, this is how it feels to trust or to let go. There's so much happening.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just a really, great question. I think there's these senses that really appear obvious, but they're signature themes. It's a signature theme. And so you're going to have the duality of the themes. So for a projector, the duality is the bitterness. If you feel bitter, unseen, unrecognized, you're in your not self theme, you're not operating correctly. If you're in your joy and success, then you're in your theme of alignment. So that's one, and that again, I like to see all of the overlaps and correlations because, it is similar to the law of attraction in that, like, if you're in fear or angst or frustration, which is another theme, then that you're in the mind pattern or you're in the resistance. But when your body is feeling satisfied, it's feeling that joy, it's feeling connected, that's when you're sort of on the right path. And it's like, when you take any moment in your life and somebody's just telling you to keep going in something that's making you miserable and, just push the gear, go harder, work harder, and you're miserable, that that's the next step to a car accident or a health crisis or something like this. So whenever you follow what feels like either a satisfaction or a joy or a peace or an awe or a wonderment, these are what we call signature themes. Whenever your body is moving into those signature themes, then you know that you're more working into the soul's becoming. The soul is speaking, through that, and again, I think the soul speaks to everybody differently. And that's another little piece that we find in human design, is how is the soul, the clairvoyance, and all of those gifts coming through. And everybody's a little different. But I do think there is one commonality, which is it's going to feel friggin' good as opposed to feeling friggin' bad, right?
Oh
Let's
my
put it
gosh.
in the most simple term.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about that, the first thing that came up was like, but is that wrong? Because we have then that other layer of conditioning, like, I'm happy somebody's going to take it away, or I'm going to get in trouble for it, or, something like that. So like, oh, I feel good. I'm doing this to myself. And then the doubt mind, or that other conditioned mind telling you, oh, this isn't good, you're going to, something bad is going to happen, because that definitely is in there. And that's part of what you're talking about, unraveling, right?
Yep.
So as you get that alignment, you get an opportunity to then see if you have any more of that attachment energy that you can unravel, because we're definitely, very few people were taught that you should look to achieve that place of, this feels great.
I know. It's just like seems so obvious, but that is not, we are definitely no. It's like sit there and suffer and be quiet and do more suffering. Like it's really, we're conditioned to like really suffer. It's like if you ever had one of those jobs where you had to watch the clock, and you're like that 1 minute of just like, oh, it just sucks until like that 1 minute. But like that is the way we're conditioned, is like we are conditioned to stay in marriages that are horrible, that we're just like not, seen or felt. And it's just, yep, you better stay there because of the kids and the this and the that. So, this changing of the wheel that we're seeing, if you look at it from the human design perspective, is that the biggest shift is that we're moving out of this arena where you have to buy into, we call it the tribal conditioning, which is basically like anything that tells you what to do, the corporate, the government, the home, like the family. And it's moving into a place where we have to have our own unique way of operating. And so there's literally going to be a foundational grid shift, where at one time fitting in was really important part of the survival. Fitting in, this is how you do the family, this is how you do the 9 to 5. Like that grid is literally falling apart. And the only thing that's going to save you, you will not get saved by like, oh, I need to follow the family, get my white picket fence, and get the job 9 to 5 and do the 401k. Like the only thing that's going to save you as this grid is shifting is to know your own unique code, to know what makes you tick. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be more chaos, more confusion, more breakdown. And then people are going to be like, well, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I go? How do I turn to this, to that, to this, to that, for the money, to this? Everything is going to come into question. And you cannot turn to anybody else but within your own unique self. And that's the message of the mutant, the era of the individual. That's the message of really bringing in the uniqueness, is like you've got to rely on your own sovereignty. And that's why the age of the guru is over too. It's like we can be spiritual teachers. And, Nan is a huge spiritual teacher. Like your energy, like you awaken, you help people. And, human design is a great thing. And I assist people, but it's not to say we're better than, or look to us and give us your power or anything like that. It's really about teaching people how to reclaim that for themselves. And that's the empowerment that we're in.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. And it does seem crazy, because especially people like my kids, they're only in their mid-20s, and what they saw growing up was, you do that And then the pandemic happens and they go like, exactly what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to plan our life? How are we supposed to, and they don't have any of those desires that we had growing up to fit in, to do the thing, to own stuff. It's just amazing. And yet they're sort of in that state of like, they're watching a world that doesn't make sense, as falling apart.
Right.
And they're so like, but then they have, people in their life, not me, but people in their life that are like, what's your plan?
Right.
What's your plan? What's your plan? Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I love it. Is there anything else you want to share about that? That was just like a beautiful way of inspiring everybody to realize you're in the breakdown. It's okay if things are breaking down. You are figuring out who you are. It's already encoded. You have a vehicle intelligence. Our mind is then the creator, and it's full of stuff. So it can take a back seat and start to watch, start to stop trying to drive. I love that idea, right? Because it's not that you then let go and you're at the mercy of everybody else's opinions, but you're also not at the mercy of all the programming in your mind. And as you're becoming, you're not going to be like anyone else. So you do find your mentors, you find your little pieces of the puzzle, you find your little things that awaken you, but everything is coming within to create you, the unique you, not I'm a this, like a little line of all the people. We saw this group on our retreat and they were just adorable. You sometimes see people on tours that all wear the same color shirt or something. But this was, which I just laugh. But this was adorable. It was this whole group of these little Asian ladies, and they all had pink hats and dresses with pink roses all over them. And they were still doing that, right? Like it was adorable and it was expressive in a unique way, but it's still like, I am part of this tribe. I identify with this. So what would you like to add or share to bring
Yeah,
that
I
all
love that
together?
recap, Nan. That was just, yeah, I love that. And I think the most important thing is if you are in one of those groups like that and you're being told to wear that pink hat and it doesn't feel good to you, that's kind of your sign that maybe it's okay. And I think where we are now, it's so obvious, like, oh yeah, it's okay to be yourself. But when you're really entrenched in something, whether it's a marriage or a religion or a family or a job or a career or whatever structure it is that you are entrenched in, if it doesn't feel good to you, it's about knowing that your soul has something bigger for you. If you're feeling bored even, or like you're at the ceiling and something's waiting to explode, like usually that's a sign that your soul is calling you to go somewhere new and explore a new realm. And what is important to remember is within you, you are coded. Like you said, you're coded, and there's a trust factor that there's something deep within you that wants to live out its divine purpose. It wants to be its unique self. And that when you follow it, you will be given not just the right teachings and the right this and that, you will be given the abundance. Abundance is our birthright. You will be given it just for being yourself, not by working harder, not by taking anything on, not by needing to prove yourself. Like that is over. It's over. And the abundance is our birthright. You may not be able to figure it out, how it's all going to fall into place, but there's a deep faith that we're here for a particular role to play, and all those pieces are going to come together, and there's going to be an infinite supply to allow you to live out your purpose. And I just don't think that's where anyone's putting their heads these days, like, oh, I'm going to have everything I need to live out my divine purpose. But it's true.
Yeah, no, I don't watch the news or anything. Occasionally things get through, and I heard this, prediction. Somebody said, well, in 20 years or X number of years, this will be like that and that will be like this. And I just laughed until I thought I was going to hurt my stomach, because I thought, how do you have a friggin' clue about that?
Yeah.
Everything changes at every moment. And that's that certainty, that decision that people want to say, well, if I, look at it this way, then it'll be that way. And everybody trying to pass laws to control everybody else, and more lockdowns, and then they can't get inside of you. Right? That's the good part.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well,
You
thank you
can't
so
really
much.
control anybody. They're trying to with fear and this and that, but the truth is we all have our sovereignty, and that's our truth, and we have it within, and we have our own power, and no one can take that from you unless you freely give it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it is difficult when you realize you have been giving it and that you were the one. Nobody took it. Nobody forced you to agree to the bullies or any of the criticism. But it's part of that realizing that you're free.
Yep.
If you're free, like you said earlier, I just wanted somebody else to tell me what to do. I had a client like that last year. I said, what's really in there? And she said, I want to know my business is going to be successful, and this is going to work, and that's going to be there, and my soulmate will be there. And I want to know, and I want it stamped, and I want it guaranteed. And I just said, do you want the truth? Because what your mind thinks that you want and you should have is not what your soul has in plan. So it's way better. Right, puppy? Well, where can everybody find you? I forgot to share your website.
Okay. Well, I have lots of social media. So I am on Instagram, official Raquel Reyna. The YouTube is a great spot to find me because we do a lot of videos on how to kind of get started on your human design. That's Raquel and Davidian, who's my partner. Unleash your genius. And then of course raquelreyna.com, kind of gives a full picture of our offerings and all that fun stuff. So any of those places. And um I'm on Facebook too. We have a great Facebook group if you're curious to have the discussion. So whichever place you like of those.
Good. And we'll have a link below if you're watching on YouTube. If you get on nanakasha.com, we'll send all that information out to you. And if you have any questions, you can always ask us because I know where to find her. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Anything else you have that you want to share?
I just want to thank you. I'm just so happy to spend this day with you, actually. Like, I just love your frequency and your energy and your work. And I'm just really blessed to have this time. And it really has been fun to share this journey with you. And you were really a Kickstarter for me. And I'm just always forever grateful. And so I'm really happy to be here. I know we kind of get these moments where we get to connect in, and it's always like a real joy for me.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. What we'll be doing next is you're going to see more of our interviews, more shows about who am I becoming, who am I designed to be, who am I in that deeper way, looking at outside of what the norm is. And if you have any questions, please let us know, because we are awakening. We have retreats, we have classes, we have all kinds of goodies for you. And the best thing is to find your path, like Raquel was saying, from within. What makes you feel lifted up, refueled, supported, accepted, excited? Where's that part of you within that's ready to speak to you? Listen, listen, listen. Give yourself at least as much spiritual time, or time with your truth, or time with yourself, time with your own inner authority, that you spend taking a shower and brushing your teeth. Hopefully a lot more, but please at least that much. Okay, I'll see you again next time.